All right, now we're going to take those same two complex numbers that we just added and subtracted, and now we're going to multiply and divide them. You'll see here the techniques are a little different. For multiplication, we're going to do it just like we would with FOILing. We multiply 3 times 7, that gives us 21. 3 times negative 5i gives us a negative 15i. 4i times 7 gives us a 28i. And then lastly, 4i times negative 5i gives us a negative 20i squared. Okay, now in the middle we can collect these two terms together. Okay, so we'll have our 21. We'll have negative 15i plus 21i. If you put those two together, you get plus 13i. And then over here, you're going to have to make note of the fact that I squared is negative 1. So we're going to have minus 20 times negative 1. Okay, now that's important because this minus 20 times negative 1 is going to turn out to be a positive 20. So now what we get, let me separate this, is 21 plus 13i and now plus 20. So notice the sign here changed. And now we collect our 21 and our 20 together to give us 41 plus the 13i. So that's the multiplication of those two complex numbers. Now for division, we're going to have to do something very strange. We have to introduce what's called the complex conjugate of the denominator. So we look at the denominator and we realize that the complex conjugate is the same number except you switch the sign in between. So if it's a minus, you make it a plus. If that had been a plus, I make it a minus. Now what we're going to do with this complex conjugate is we're going to use it to somehow transform this division. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm going to take my 3 plus 4i, and I was dividing it by 7 minus 5i. I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate, the complex conjugate, which is 7 plus 5i. Then what we do is we FOIL the top and we FOIL the bottom, and we come up with a new fraction. So here to here gives us 21. Here to here gives us plus 15i. Here to here gives us plus 28i. And then here to here gives us plus 20i squared. On the bottom, we're going to do the same thing. 7 times 7 gives us 49. 7 times 5i gives us plus 35i. Negative 5i times 7 gives us negative 35i. And then lastly, negative 5i times positive 5i gives us negative 25i squared. Okay, let's start to clean these things up now. In the numerator, we have 21. Now we can combine these two together. This will give us plus 43i. And then over here, remember, I squared becomes negative 1. The negative 1 times the positive 20 gives us a minus 20. On the bottom, something interesting should happen. Your I terms should cancel each other out. And that's kind of the power and the beauty of coming through with the complex conjugate on top and bottom. What we're left with is 49. Now we have minus 25i squared. Again, I squared is negative 1. That negative 1 will turn that into a positive 25. Okay, now we're ready to almost have our answer. We're going to take our 21. We're going to subtract 20. That's going to give us 1 minus 43i. Over, on the bottom, 49 plus 25, which gives us 74. Now that may not look like a complex number, but what you can do is you can split it into two pieces. Since there's two terms in the numerator and one in the denominator, you can write that as 1 over 74 minus 43 over 74i. And that's a complex number. It's in the form a plus bi.